We're live. Happy Wine Wednesday. We have the craziest show coming up with winemaker Ilya Senchuk of Leaning Post Wine. So stay tuned. Hey, happy Wine Wednesday. Cheers.
Cheers, cheers, cheers. Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club member, everyone across the country from Prince Edward Island, from Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, all the way to Vancouver. Welcome, Canadian wine lovers. Another pack and fun show coming your way right now. We have one of the, to my opinion, one of the very best winemaker in the country is joining us. I've been waiting for that moment for 2 years now to feature a Leaning Post wine, and it is here. Really freaking, really exciting. We have an incredible lineup of wine to talk about. We'll talk about Advent calendar. We'll talk about my trip to Montreal. We'll talk about Christmas gifting, and we'll talk about a ton of other things. So, Mira, how are you?
Well, pretty good. You know, I have to say, I don't know if it's just getting busier or what, but we were so tired today. We have been running around so much lately. There's almost no time for sleep. It is really crazy around here. I'm actually really looking forward to our Red Blends Marathon on December 28th. Because there's that lull between Christmas and New Year where I feel like everything settles down. Everything's really quiet. Daryl's at Leaning Post Tasting and Club Pickup Saturday.
There you go. Good time with Nadia and Ilya in the house. Good job, Daryl. That is always a fun time at Leaning Post. I don't know if you'll have time to get a few pictures of our last trip down a little later on, Mira. But I remember last time we got there after our Batchelder event, on our way back to the airport, we stopped there we taught for an hour, and yeah, we ended up tasting like 25 wines in an hour and a half. So that's the kind of things that happen at Leaning Post. So pretty cool. Always. I have a few wink hint for the Advent calendar for our people, which are on the way. So it's really exciting. I can't wait for you guys to get that. It's starting next Friday. We are absolutely thrilled for that 12 bottles selection, all from 10 different sub-appellation across the country. And all of these wines are absolutely off the chart. I cannot wait to start that experience. Really fun. So, yeah, woohoo! How about Mira? We before Ilya joins us, maybe we can talk a little bit about Montreal. How about that? Montreal was fun. I was down there for La Grande Dégustation, which is a giant wine tasting with there was over 2,500 different wines open in that place.
From all over the world, even Romania.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had fun with the Romanian guy. It was pretty fun there. I was working with the Dobbins wine at the Ontario winery. At the Ontario winery booth. So we had 35 wines from Ontario, and it was a huge, gigantic wine show at the old port. Probably 100 175 to 200 different booths. And yeah, so we were presenting 35 different Ontario wines, including 4 Dobbins wines. We were absolutely off the chart, but there was also Malivoire wines, Cave Spring, Todd's, um, Westcott. There, what else? There was Wayne Gretzky of all Paley Island. So there was a ton of different wines that the Ontario producer sent down there, and we were there promoting the beautiful product of Ontario amongst all of these international wines. And our booth was jam packed all weekend long. The great Thomas Batchelder was on site. Also the people at Hidden Bench, Poplar Grove also, because like some product in Quebec who are represented with distribution agencies, so they had product in the room, but at our booth, it was pretty cool working with Dave Brennan, the winemaker at Dobbin. We had a real good time. I have to say, keep your eye and your ears open for a small producer called Kern and Co.
Oh
That was
yeah.
my discovery of the weekend. I mean, Adam Kern is a winemaker. Like Adam used to make wines with Jacob Lipinski at Big Head. He used to make wines with lots of different, like really top-notch winemakers. But in 2018, he started his own brand called the Kern and Co. Small, tiny production, and a little bit like Thomas Batchelder, micro négoce, like we call. They source wine from specific growers across Niagara and produce tiny batch of terroir-driven wines. But these wines were off the chart, absolutely off the chart. 2018 Chardonnay, 2018 2020 Gamay, 2018 Cap Franc. The Chardonnay was from the Hughes Vineyard, Wilms Vineyard for their Gamay. Same plot that Thomas makes an outstanding Gamay. He had the Wismer Foxcroft Cap Franc. But this was my discovery of the weekend. I had the chance to dig even deeper into the Dobbins wines, which we featured. And you know what? More I was tasting them over the weekend in Montreal, more I realized that they are in a class of their own. I mean, yes, it's super premium, but when you taste that, Dobbins wines were probably the very top wines at the table of Winery of Ontario. Yes, at the top of the price list as well, but in terms of quality, it was absolutely off the chart. Again and again, more I dig into it, and it was a big wow for the consumer as well. So it was fun. I came back with $100 of worth of cheese curds. Yes, I sure did. Backpack full of cheese curd. I was pretty fun. We're on to our last bag, by the way. So we've been running on cheese curds since I got back on Sunday night.
A lot of cheese
Absolutely.
curds.
Yeah. Happy Cabernet Franc Day. You're right, Karen. I forgot about that this morning. So it's Cap Franc Day across the country here, around the world. So to all of our Cap Franc lovers, which include Daryl. Yes, I know that deep inside of you, Daryl, you like your Cap Franc. Well, not with too much Pyrazine, but there's so many different style of Cabernet Franc. And actually, that's fun because in Montreal, one of the feature region at the show was the Loire Valley. So there was a bunch of geeky, natural Cap Franc, but some of them were off the chart, freaking Pyrazine power, green as fuck. And I'll tell you, I tasted a few, and every time I thought of Daryl, I was like, oh my God, the poor man will lose his mind if he was here tasting these wines. To be honest, I kind of lost interest at some point. I stopped. I went to taste some Rueda, so Spanish wines. But you know what? Like, I mean, yeah, they're good. But they're all like between $17 and $24. And I kind of, again, I got bored pretty quickly tasting these Spanish wines as well. But yeah, again, our booth was one of the most attended, and a lot of fun talking with Shiraz Mohitar at Malivoire, uh, talking with Faik Turkman at Stonebridge, who spent some time with us at the booth, who came from Niagara. The guys at Pause, Danielle Lafleur. Danielle, if you're watching, it was great spending time with you. The guys at Claus and Chase, we had some wine from Claus and Chase as well. I was surprised. The Quebecois really like to go to Prince Edward County. Lots of people, and Clausen was one of the most known wineries in the lineup. So it was pretty surprising for me. And yeah, lots of good discovery. But Kern and Co., telling you, people from Ontario, Kern and Co., keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. It's really, really cool. The guys make some freaking. Oh, right, he was the guy who made the wine for ADX wines. So
Which
the
was
wine.
one of the top wines in the Chardonnay tasting that we had back
Yeah,
in
the
May.
top value, the very top value wine in the Chardonnay tasting, and one of my top 10. So yeah, I had a blast spending time with Adam, know him a little better. So yeah, that's my trip in Montreal in a nutshell, representing the wines of Ontario among like over 2,000 wines from around the world. Um, Thank you, Anne Sperling and Dobbin Estate, for getting me out there, and the all of these fine folks from the Ontario wineries to welcome me, open arms, to talk about their wines and the world class wineries of Ontario. It was great. It was great.
Awesome. Well, hey, guess what? The guest of honor, Ilya Senchuk himself, is in the green room. I have to say something. I poured you one blind tasting wine today because we were doing 3 blind tasting wines on Carl. And if we've got someone like Ilya on, I mean, we could be here till midnight if we try to also blind taste Carl on 3 wines. So I got one in your glass and you get like 1 shot. Can you tell me what varietal it is?
Well, you really think you're gonna you're gonna fool me with that? I mean, Jesus Mary, like. There's one thing in the world that I like as much as no, not as much, but like there's my family, okay? There's my wife and my kids, this way, like this, right? Wife and kids, like right this. There's the Ravens, okay,
Right.
watching my football game. That is pretty up high, right? But between my family, my kids, and the Ravens, there's one thing, and there's Chardonnay. And you really think you're gonna fool me with a glass of Chardonnay like this is
Well, it'd be very embarrassing if it was like a Semillon or something, but it is a
yeah,
Chardonnay.
okay.
It is. So
Sometimes
we'll talk about it later.
there's a little bit of a question mark. I think might be, is it? No, this is Chardonnay, and it's Chardonnay from and this it's wild ferment Chardonnay from Ontario. That's what I can say. Might be 20 Mile Bench. I'm not sure. If it's not 20 Mile Bench, she's not far.
It
But
has a distinctive nose from that area, and you're right. I will have to check if it is. All right.
I'm not sure.
We'll bring Ilya on, and we can get talking about something else. It is Bachelor Mio Chardonnay.
Oh, so okay, this is
Lakeshore, which is where Ilya's winery is located, correct?
So you thought of that long, right? Yeah, that was so yeah. So next time you're trying to blind taste me and fool me over with the bottle of Ontario Chardonnay, you might have to start earlier than that, because that's not gonna work. Ain't gonna work.
So let's bring Ilya on. Ilya Senchuk and Nadia Senchuk. They are the owners of Leaning Post Winery. Like you said, we've got some incredible pictures because the last few times we've been there with members, it's just one of those wow experiences. And probably our #1 wine of the year is Leaning Post.
I mean, Mira, where we're at in December, we have 3 more weeks to go. I can't tell you for 99.9% sure that clone 548 of Chardonnay Senchuk will be the wine of the year, Carl's Wine Club this
It's
year.
96 plus points. I think you've only ever given a score like that to like what, 2 wines, 3 wines. All right, let's bring Ilya on. He's the winemaker and the co-founder, so he's going to tell us more about this. Ilya, cheers.
Hey guys.
Happy Wine Wednesday. Happy
How you
Capital
guys
Friday.
Ilya, welcome. Did you see that? She tries to blind taste me with the bottle of Ontario Chardonnay.
Good. I thought it was pretty great.
I mean, come on.
I'll mention it was Lincoln Lakeshore, so it's like across the road. So
That's I know. I failed on that one. I have to. Yeah. Sorry, I did mess it up, but yeah, next time here I'll try to get a little bit more.
Yeah.
Next time, maybe she should blind taste me with a bottle of Dolcetto.
Maybe.
Maybe. I've talked with some people all the way in Montreal over the weekend who knew about your project, and people are getting pretty excited about that new little wine that you're making. You're going to be releasing at some point.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool thing. I mean, we're definitely the first people, at least in Ontario, to put out and like plant like a serious amount of Dolcetto. I have heard there is like 1 row of Dolcetto in PEC. Everybody keeps telling me that. I can't remember which.
I heard about that in Montreal too.
Which is really funny, I say Dolcetto, Ontario, and I'm like, I think I'm the first one, and everybody's there's 1 row.
The guy from Claus and Chase told me.
That's right.
Francis from Claus and Chase. And Carl, no, I think there's a row in Prince Edward County. I don't know where, but there's a row.
Everybody keeps telling me about this row. But so I'll just say we're the second people to, I guess, put it in the ground. Definitely the first people to produce a Dolcetto. Because apparently it's part of a field blend. So,
exactly.
We'll be the only people actually producing a Dolcetto. We did our first one actually 2023, so last vintage. We have 2 whole barrels, so it's gonna be like 45 cases maybe. And yeah, really cool. And then this year we have a little bit more. We have like maybe 5 barrels worth, like roughly.
So, it's gonna stay in the field blend because Daryl wants to know. Daryl's been following Steg's Hollow Dolcetto in BC forever. It sounds like he might be bringing it by for a treat sometime soon. And so is the plan to keep it in a field blend, or is it going to go where you don't know
for Ilya, I think Ilya's bottling that on its own.
Yeah. The idea is anything that we have, because it's Senchuk Vineyard. So when we're done, I mean, there'll be sort of like, because we have a Senchuk Vineyard Gamay actually coming as well. So, and we don't talk about it as much because it's not quite as unusual, but next to each other, it's actually way more Gamay than Dolcetto. So there's going to be like a Senchuk Vineyard Gamay and a Senchuk Vineyard Dolcetto. They'll be coming out as single varietals for sure. So that's the idea with the Dolcetto. So I will say actually what blew me away. So in 2023, it was all very normal. I don't know if people have been telling you about 24, but this year has been like nuts. That's the only way to put it. Everything was a week to sometimes 3 weeks early by the end of harvest. So it was an absolutely crazy harvest. So I heard
I heard that half the winemaker in Ontario are on vacation by now.
Well, it's so. Do you know how busy? Do you know how busy and hard this harvest was? Thomas Batchelder randomly texted me and was like Gamay tasting, and like 12 winemakers showed up in the middle of harvest for a Gamay tasting because that's how hard we were working. We were literally like, yeah, how are you working? I haven't picked anything in weeks. It's half of it's in. Yeah, me too. And then so we just sat around tasting Gamay for like a random Friday with like all these guys, Adam Kern and the guy like Casey from Southbrook. Anyway, like about 14 of us just got together and did a random Gamay tasting in the middle of harvest, which I've never done in 22 harvests because when would you ever have time? But there was like a window, like especially if you're Pinot Chard, we were done 3/4 of our harvest by September 22nd. Like literally,
that's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
We're like all in. Even my place, which is much cooler than my other sites. 3 days we finished Pinot from end to end, like from St. David's to Senchuk Vineyard was 3 days already at the same time. And normally it's like 1 year it was 2 weeks apart. So that gives you an idea of how weird this whole year was. So wines are great, but just, But then when we were done, we were like, we literally, it took us like 3 weeks before we could pick like Gamay, Dolcetto, things like that. So
Wow.
So I skipped. Okay, I completely went off script right out of the gate. So that was not planned.
Okay.
Absolutely. But you mentioned a name. You mentioned Adam Kern. So that's funny you mentioned that, because in my intro, I spent some time in Montreal with Adam last weekend. I've never tasted his wine, and it is my discovery of the weekend. The Kern and Co wines are absolutely freaking fantastic.
So I'm gonna take a little bit of credit with Adam, because he actually so I've been lucky enough, honestly. I've sort of brought in a lot of winemakers, and they've been my assistant winemaker. I've had a bunch of them between my various jobs. So Adam was my first, like, basically he worked the first harvest that I did at Foreign Affair. So he and I worked together for almost a year. He met his wife at Foreign Affair.
Yeah, and she's still there. She's still there.
She's still there.
Yeah.
And Nadia even takes credit for getting them together, although I think they were already getting together. But anyway. But yeah, so we've known them a long time. So there's a lot of really great winemakers in Niagara doing stuff like that. I think that's probably the most exciting part to me, is like when we started this project, sort of we're on, what are we on, like year 12, roughly 13 for owning the property and whatever. Like when we started, there just were not a lot of sort of projects like ours, and now there's a lot of young winemakers doing cool things, and I think that just keeps the area super exciting and fresh and young, and yeah, that's been the real fun thing for us. So
it sure was, and his lineup is pretty cool, and I mean the wines are delicious, and we're just tasting some of his 2018, and all these wines are just coming together, are coming along right now. Really, really cool things to discover. So really happy to meet him. We have one of our member here saying that she believes that Hobbs Creek in Prince Edward County.
That's the one. I can never remember that. No, I can never remember the name of the winery, because again, because it's like it's the smallest of like 4 grape varieties in a field blend. It's literally one row.
That's the row that we're talking about.
And they always pick it together. Yeah. So I just laugh because we're I guess the second people to put it in the ground. But to be fair, like I said, we did 1,200 vines. Like we did just under an acre. So I wanted it enough to be like a little bit of a commercial thing. I will say just another thing about 24, which really blew my mind. So the Gamay, everything else was normal, but big reds even earlier than Pinots. This year, like we were picking Syrah in I can't remember, like just around Thanksgiving, and then
wow.
And then so the dumbest one is the Dolcetto this year, because it wins the record this year for the highest sugar. That was not by choice. I didn't believe the numbers. I thought that was crazy, because we're in Winona, so we're also one of the coolest spots, as you know, and I've been joking, but like, so we got 25.3 bricks.
25.3 bricks
Dolcetto this year.
On Dolcetto.
In Winona, on our farm. So we were like, what is this, like Piemonte and Winona? Like,
yeah, exactly, right?
And like mid-October, like October, same thing, like October, whatever, 13th or 14th. And we were like, oh, okay. So, it's a beautiful wine, but it's no Shrinking Violet. Like it's.
I mean, that's going to be bold. That's going to be bold and maraschino cherry and juicy and robust.
Yeah. So interesting times, even here. So
even here, yeah, exactly. Yeah. We have Mike Lapon, the average wine enthusiast here, is a regular on the show. He's asking, what is your motivation to work with Dolcetto?
Okay. Well, I don't know. Does everybody know who we are? I don't know how far back to start. We're sort of.
You know what? That's so funny because okay, Mira, you need to keep me on track here. I'm talking to Ilya like if we're sitting in the backyard with the fire pit here drinking a beer. So okay, let's start from the Mike.
Does the Dolcetto fit in the story then?
Later.
who you are?
Later.
It will, yeah, it will. But maybe we should give
Okay.
everybody
Okay.
a
Hang
little bit
on
of
then.
our
Hang on.
background.
Yeah. So let's backtrack.
Right.
Mike, we'll get back to your question. Let's put that on ice a bit. I want to introduce to our hundreds of people who are listening right now a one of my very, very favorite winemakers across the country, Ilya Senchuk, who owns Leading Post, him and his wife, Nadia Senchuk. Like Ilya mentioned a little earlier, now you're in the 13 years to own your own farm in Winona. It's near Hamilton. I mean, this is, if you come from Toronto, it's the very, very, very first winery that you can stop on your way to wine country, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Again, we might get some, some squawking from the folks at Ridge Road because I think they're 400 meters closer. But but yeah, basically, I like to tell everybody when you're coming from Toronto and you're just driving along, as soon as you see the signs that say like "Welcome to Niagara," we are literally that first exit. Like the very we are the very, very extreme western edge of Niagara. Technically in the town, technically in the city of Hamilton, but from like a grape growing and historical and VQA and all that, we are in Niagara, and then our little sub app is Lincoln Lakeshore, but we're the very kind of like our Niagara and the whole area kind of runs about 500 meters west of us, and then that's the end. So like I say, we're literally right at the very beginning of the area. So
that's where you're located.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about why a guy from Winnipeg, the mecca of wine.
That's what we joke. Nadia and I are from the grape growing mecca of Winnipeg, both of us.
So how the heck you and Nadia ended up in Niagara buying a farm who was completely decrepitated, like completely destroyed, and put everything you had into that, and now 13 years later living the dream. Like you need to explain to us, because it's hard to put all of these pieces together.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, especially looking back now, it's a really crazy story because I was kind of just finishing my second year of like a general science degree at University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, and like it's sort of a nice way, a polite way of saying like I had no idea what I was doing with my life, right? I was just kind of we've all done that, if you take enough courses, then maybe you can figure it out.
I took international geography. Okay,
exactly. That's so we've all been there. So and I was. It was actually in literally exams of a second year, and I was like, I'm not really in a program. And I just read a random article. It was actually about Brock's program. So Brock University out here in Niagara was just basically starting a viticulture, an enology and viticulture program. So in winemaking and grape growing. And I was already thinking, like, I was a little bit into culinary, like I was thinking maybe culinary school or something along those lines. Wasn't really too sure. And then just getting into wine basically. And then I read that article, and then it like sort of looked into it. It was a science degree. I hadn't wasted 2 years. Like they would take most of it. And then I kind of looked at it, and I was kind of into wine. I just remember thinking, I was like, I think I could do that. Which is literally the amount I knew about winemaking. Like that, that was it. Like I think I can do that, was it. And I knew that I liked wine. And from that, yeah, I just applied, moved out here. Nadia was in financials and banking. She was doing like an economics degree. She had a bit of a better idea of what she was doing. And then she did like an MBA out here. She was in banking for a while. Like I worked for other people. So long story short, I got my degree, worked for a couple of other wineries, was in charge there about 10 years. She was in banking, and then we did the even crazier thing where we were like, yes, I think now we should buy a farm and start our own winery. And really, that was sort of our pillow talk, as Nadia always said. Like for a couple of years, we were like, what do you want to do? Well, what do you think it'll look like? Well, I want to buy a farm. I want to put in a vineyard. And to be honest, with this property that we're on now, we actually lost out. We got outbid on 3 other properties before we found this place. And they were all more functioning wineries or vineyards than this. But I literally just was like, well, I don't know. Maybe we'll put that on the shelf for a while. And I looked up She just said, well, maybe we'll look to buy a rental. Maybe we'll build some equity, whatever. And I just looked up rentals from like Stony Creek to St. Catharines. And I was like, oh, it'll be kind of nearby where we're living. And then this was like the second or third thing I saw. And I was like, oh, triplex with 10 acres of vineyard. I was like, that's weird. Where is this? What it doesn't make any sense. So I drove down and I was like, oh, and then it turns out it's beautiful century home. But was a vineyard, but like definitely abandoned. And then the barn, beautiful again, 1850s, but definitely a shell. So, and then most people would drive down there and go, oh, okay. And then Nadia and I drove on there, and we were like, yeah, this is it. This is total. This is amazing. We loved it. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. We moved into it with a 10-month-old in a snowstorm in February. And then, now that same boy we just took to high school. So there you go.
Yeah.
So that gives you kind of the timeline. And we opened our doors to the public. We're just kind of year 11, kind of right now. We just kind of opened November of 2013, basically. So
yeah, because November, mid-November is very suitable to open your door for tasting room.
Everything. Hey, we closed on February 1st, so like everything about this project has sort of been like that. But it all seems to work out. We've sort of not worried so much about that kind of stuff, and worried more about like, I don't know, just like, do we love what we're doing? Do we believe in our product? Is this, like, do we believe in what we're doing? And we found the rest kind of falls into place. Like a month here or there, or whatever, hasn't really seemed to be such a big deal for us, but maybe that's our naive, I don't know, whatever. 13 years in, we're still thinking that way. So we just kind of do things as they come. So
that's awesome. Let's talk about the vineyard, okay? Because now it's becoming, here you go. There you go. And we have a
speaking of the vineyard, so this was the first time we met you guys at your winery, and I think the following year you finally found our kids' shoes in the vines. Sort of
correct. We found
at different ends of the vineyard.
We found not a pair, but a matching like one crock from your kid and one crock from our kid is actually
perfect
from the race. So yeah, we found one of Yuba's and one from like they were not matching, but they were on the same rows.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And we need to tell the vineyard and back. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we need to tell the people. So we were there, and it was like 37 degrees, and they was scorching hot. And we tried to have a tasting, and the kids were just oblivious. Like we couldn't have 2 minutes to talk. And I said, "Hey, I have an idea. How about you guys go all the way to the end of the vineyard and come back?" But I didn't know how far the end of the vineyard was, because I still think about that and I feel like a horrible dad. I'm like, holy smokes.
You just didn't really do the math of like, okay, this is a long and skinny property. So
yeah,
if it's 10 acres and you're going straight that way, then that's the long
way. Came back like with like one shoe each.
And and like just like in the movies, like dirt in their face and so dirt. I'm like, holy shit, what just happened? My dad, you told us to go at the end of the vineyard. It's pretty far.
No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So Senchuk Vineyard. So when you took over, that was like literally nothing really suited. Like, I mean, like you believed in the region, you believed in the potential of the dirt, not what was on the dirt.
No, so the cool thing about our vineyard, I will say, is like it wasn't. I like to say, like, I to be honest, I do kind of. It's not really a joke, but I do kind of joke. Like when we bought it, people were like, "Well, did you do soil samples? Like, what did you do?" And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest. I like walked out and I like rubbed some dirt in my hands and like I put my winemaker finger in the air and I was like, yeah, it's great. But the real story behind that is, I mean, Mira and Carl haven't really said, but like there's literally a vineyard across the street. There's a vineyard up the road. Like it is like although the city is starting to encroach near us, it's a bit more sort of like a West Kelowna kind of thing. Like there are established vineyards, just not right on this property. Like,
so I do have to say, like here, okay, we finally found the escarpment. This was our first time touring with members a couple years ago, and everyone's like, "Oh, we're right near the escarpment," and we're like, "What?" We're from BC, so we're like, "What is this escarpment?" Everyone's like, "Oh, it's this like big cliff." you know, and the air comes in. It's this ancient part of the, and we're like, what are you talking about? Because in the Okanagan, I mean, you got
We got
mountains everywhere.
mountains, yeah. Well, the weird thing about
Well,
an
that's
escarpment,
the escarpment. That's what Michelle
yes, in
there
the
is
background,
pointing at.
exactly.
That
Well,
hill there.
yeah, exactly. And the weird thing I try and explain to everybody, like, it is a bit. Actually, the weird part is Nadia and I, as sort of an aside, we just went to Burgundy for the first time this year in May. And it's that's a little freaky because it really is just an escarpment in Burgundy too. But you don't think of it that way because it's whatever they call it, like the hills, or they use other names, but it's that's what it is. There's basically a sort of a weird kind of wall and rolling cliff all the way along what, like, at least the sort of the Côte d'Or, right? Like the Côte de Bon. Like, it really is just an escarpment. I don't mean that in a negative way, but you don't think of it that way because that's not the word that they use, right? So that was sort of the weirdest thing, is to see it and go, oh, I see. Now I'm sort of getting a little bit more of that connection. So yeah, it's not a hill, it's not a mountain. It's this sort of weird, like, wall of limestone essentially that runs kind of one end to the other in Niagara, right? But it is what makes the area kind of magical, right? Because
so you're close to the lake, you're right by the lake, you're the closest from the lake, but you're a little further from the escarpment, so you have the warming effect of the lake, and you get the air circulation of the air who goes and come back through the escarpment. That's a little bit of your old little microclimate there.
Yeah, well, that's like pretty much all of the main part of Niagara. That's how that works. I like to say we're just sort of the area at its extreme, like really squished. I mean, basically what happens is, because we're sort of at that beginning, if you ever look on a map, for whatever reason, the escarpment and the lake come really close together right past Hamilton and right at the beginning of Niagara before they kind of diverge a little bit. So right where we are, I mean, we have the same sunshine, the same, in theory, the same like general climate as all the rest of Niagara. But the weird thing is, it's only 1.6 kilometers between the lake and the escarpment where we are, right at our winery. And so we have a huge lake effect in like the whole area. Like, there's no real way to escape that. Our vineyard is essentially halfway between. But if you do the math, then that's only 800 meters to the lake. And it's only 800 meters to the escarpment. Like, it's just weird little narrow bit. Always windy, always windswept. Like, it's the air is always turning. And then as a result, you get these like crazy diurnals, like, evenings are cooler, days are not quite as hot. We get a lot of protection and stuff. So again, like, we're sort of right at that very, if you ever look on a map. So Lincoln Lakeshore, kind of whatever, the orange one. And we're right at the beginning where it's kind of gets quite narrow.
Yeah.
So that's the weird part about our area, especially even compared to the whole rest of the region. So it's, like I said, same sunshine and same sort of on paper, all the same numbers, but it's not the high and low that are that different, but it's when they come. Like, even we have employees who used to live in Beamsville, and like, if they drive in at 8 a.m., we're 2 or 3 degrees cooler when they're driving in. But then maybe at 1 or 2 in the afternoon, it's kind of the same temperature. But then at 5 or 6, when they're driving home, again, it gets cooler at our place faster. And then, so you multiply that by like the entire growing season, and all of a sudden we are a different sort of place. We end up with these wines that are like very powerful, but not normally, outside of Dolcetto this year, not normally about big alcohol, and like, they're about density, but they're still relatively moderate alcohols, usually 12.5 to 13.5%. Nothing crazy, right? But the density and the power are still all there, and they keep acidity even this year. That's the weird thing, as an example, because we do make, I don't know if I mentioned that, but I was always playing with grapes from other parts of Niagara as well. So we do actually make, for everybody's watching today, like, we make essentially 4 single vineyard Pinots, 4 single vineyard Chardonnays, of which really only one or a couple come from our vineyard. So they come from all across Niagara, and there are warmer places that we get stuff. But as an example, this year we picked in the same kind of 3 days Pinot, and the biggest difference between our property and St. David's, which is kind of the property we get that's the furthest from us and the hottest, was in acid, not sugar. The sugars were almost identical, but we had almost a full gram of acid more naturally.
Oh, wow.
And picked 2 days later. So it's not a like it's just, it adds up over the season. So you could really see it this year almost, because the physical ripeness of the sugars were there, but we just had just more acidity the closer you got to us. So
that is pretty cool. So when you established the Senchuk vineyard, the thought was to focus on Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, but
correct.
you had other ideas though, but you didn't want to exclusively get there. So tell us a little bit about that thought process.
Well, so yeah, that was an interesting process too, because the logical thing to me is I'm a big like Burgundy head, Chardonnay, Pinot anyway, and then this area to me, like I said, I mean, we talked to an old grower and he told us, I'll quote him because he was an old Italian gentleman who said, "You in Winona, the only thing Winona is good for is growing houses." So that's how like I'm not joking, an old Italian grape grower in the area, because it was a cool area. So if you're a grape grower, and as a winemaker, I had this foolish like grin on my face. I was like, I know, it's great, because it's sort of cool and marginal, and I'm into Chardonnay, Pinot. So I chose grape varieties that ripen early and want these sort of cooler things. But you're right. I planted like sort of 5 acres of the 10 acres we had, 5 and a bit. And that was to Chardonnay Pinot because I knew he would focus. And then we kind of left like roughly 4 and a bit acres, but let's call it 4 acres of vines to like just leave for a few years and figure out what we wanted to do with it. So I did a bunch of research, and just one day I said to Nadia, I was like, you know what I would really like to do? I mean, I don't want to take a huge chance, but we got this 4 acres. I do want to do something that nobody will do for us, like no grape grower will do for us. But I don't want to take a huge chance. So what I'm thinking is like, if we plant like 3/4 of the new planting to something that's kind of proven, and then if you give me like, I'll throw out a number. I said like 10 rows. So like, it's not even an acre. Can I just kind of do whatever I want in that 10 rows, as long as and then we kind of agreed on that. So we planted like 2.5, almost 3 acres of Gamay, really proven thing, very much related to Pinot and Chard. And then I spent a lot of time looking at what was I going to do with these 10 rows. And I kind of narrowed it down, looked at some studies. So I still got to have a science background, and I kind of narrowed it down to a few things. But it turns out, so I wanted it to be something that maybe nobody else was doing. I didn't know about the 1 row. And then I also, but I did want it to work in my area. And then so it's still a relatively cool area. So I kind of narrowed it down. I actually was thinking of possibly some Jura varieties. Like, I don't know if everybody who's watching here knows, but like the mountainous area on the border of like Switzerland, Italy, France, up in the mountains, things that ripen early. That made sense to me. Then I sort of backed off a little bit in the sense that I was like, well, like how different are things like Poussard or Trousseau really from Gamay or Pinot? Really, like they're still in that same zone. I wanted something that tasted quite different. And then Dolcetto came on my list because of that. I sort of discovered as with my research that like in Piemonte, so for those people who don't know, Dolcetto's kind of like the workhorse grape of Piemonte. So like Nebbiolo
is the big guy, like the structured, the serious stuff, and the Dolcetto, it's basically the everyday drinking jog wine.
Yeah, no, it is, because like as one, because I've met a few like Piemonte producers in the meantime, and one lady kind of said, she's like, the best hills, that's Nebbiolo. The second best hills, Barbera. And then she said, all the frost pockets and the dips, Dolcetto. And for me, as funny as that sounds, it's like the Italian guy with the houses. I was like, oh, that's great, right? Because for me, I was thinking like, it is Canada. We have bigger extremes. What am I going to do with one cold winter? I don't want this to be something that just dies off on me. So I thought something that's resilient relatively, and then also ripens earlier than both of those two. And both of those things are still true. So again, proven by this year. I mean, that's a bit extreme, but it does ripen sort of with Gamay or Merlot. So it isn't like a crazy late. It's kind of mid to late season, sort of around Thanksgiving. That's normal for Dolcetto. So in our area, that's a totally normal thing. We can ripen that. As an example, it's 2 weeks before Cabernet Franc, and there's some lovely Cabernet Franc coming out of our area. So I didn't think that was crazy. So, and then I thought, it kind of fits the bill. It doesn't really, it's Italian. It doesn't really taste like any Burgundy varieties or any Bordeaux varieties. I wanted to do kind of one thing that was, yeah, it is off the wall the way it seems, but I wanted to do that kind of deliberately, to do something that was just unique and different, but not take a huge chance, if that makes sense. So it's always going to be like just a few barrels a year, something fun for me to play with and try. So
And do you have any Riesling? Do you have any Riesling on the property, or none at all?
No.
You know what? I thought you had a little bit. So basically, Pinot and Chard at 60%, and the rest, like it's Riesling and a little bit of Dolce, Gamay, I mean, and Dolcetto.
Yeah, for Senchuk Vineyard, that's it. So we got 4 great varieties.
Okay.
Riesling, I thought about it too. What I decided with Riesling is more that there is a lot of Riesling out there already, and I can actually find some lovely older vines Riesling. So growing it myself, I wasn't sure whether I would prove as much, if that makes sense. Like for me, when I can actually literally I can find like a 40-year-old Riesling vineyard and make wines tomorrow. And I just feel like that is more, in a way, more interesting actually than me spending 5 years like growing it up. Whereas, something like Pinot or Dolcetto or Gamay, there's a little less of that still, and we can really show something about terroir because our terroir is unique. So yeah, that was kind of the whole thought process. So
that's awesome. I love that. And I want to put also people in perspective who know a little bit where Lincoln Lakeshore is. 800 meters from you, or across the street from you, you're right across the Grimsby Hillside Vineyard. So when you built your own vineyard, you knew what was across the street. You knew the potential, because, I mean, talking about one of the greatest piece of dirt in Niagara now, it's right nearby you, and you knew exactly what to look for.
Well, it's funny because it wasn't what it is now either. So I knew it as a different vineyard, and I knew it sort of tangentially. I had bought some fruit from it when I was at Foreign Affair.
Yeah.
But that was actually Cabernet Sauvignon, a little bit of Cabernet Franc. But to be honest, when we started this place, they weren't taking any of that stuff sort of seriously either. They were just sort of a bit of an oddball vineyard on the edge of Niagara as well, like us. The cool thing is when we were starting our project, the sons there, specifically actually Paul Francioso, who took over, he is a big wine nerd as well. And he just kind of, honestly, like I said, I take credit for giving free advice. They did all the work. That's the only, on that one, it's more that he is very big into wine, kind of learned about us. And one day he just came across the street and talked to us and said, look, I love your wines. We think there's some very cool stuff. Like what is it that we need to do? And I just kind of said, honestly, you just need really great vineyard management. But they did all the work. Like they sort of, they found a great vineyard manager, started to focus on quality. And I just said, if you're across the street, I will definitely buy a ton of grapes from you. I obviously can't buy it all, but I'll also promote you guys because it's a no-brainer for me. If I have a great source of fruit, not only from my own property, it helps build the area. And the one thing about them is, unlike us, like we're only basically 10 acres of vineyard. I mean, they are now 80 acres of vineyard. Planted. So I knew that it was a bigger commercial operation, but to me, they wanted like people like me to buy individual little plots. They wanted us to put those out on the market. So to me, that was super exciting because then I had the option both of my place, but also something that is readily available. So yeah, I do a Chard and Pinot. I actually do a Riesling now from them and a Cabernet Franc. So I actually do 4 wines from Grimsby Hillside as well. Just because for me, like I said, it's the no-brainer.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing is you guys had this experience is I've tried to, I have a dream. I have for everybody listening, I have a dream that it doesn't matter how into wine you are or not. We talk about these fancy terms. We say terroir. All that really means is like, I want you to come see me, come talk to Carl and Mira, whatever, but come see us. I will pour you 2 Chardonnays. One is from Senchuk Vineyard. One is from Grimsby Hillside. They're 800 meters apart, and they taste different. You don't have to like completely different. Huge like somm. You don't have to have any training. This is literally like single source coffee. Like you come here. I didn't even, if you say, do you know Chardonnay? And people say, I've heard of it. That's enough. Like come and taste, because what's amazing is that's all it's about. It's, we grew this Chardonnay here on our property. We grew this Chardonnay across the street, and we did nothing in the winery different from each other. We put them in some barrels. We waited a bunch of time, and then we took them out of the barrels and bottled them. Like we did stuff in between, but really in terms
of simplified. It's very well simplified.
No, but it really didn't do anything. But yet somehow they taste completely different, and the question is why. And that's what I always say. Like, we're just, what I hope my job as a winemaker is like, we're very fancy farmers. Like it's very fancy, and there's like a whole bunch of steps in between. So I did simplify it. There's like hundreds of steps in between. But fundamentally, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to translate to you like a piece of land and a place and a time. And I think that's the coolest thing about wine. Wine is quite literally place and time in liquid. And then you'll never repeat it, because the next year, even the same farm will be a little different. That's vintage. But also there's a commonality. There's a personality. It's like me. I'm not exactly the same person as when I started making wine, but I'm still me. There's a common thread. And I like to think of farms that way too, right? So that you're still kind of the same person, maybe a little bit older, possibly wiser, who knows? Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely different, right?
Depends what time of the day also.
That's right. And it depends who's asking. Like
that's awesome. Mira, there's a ton of comments in the chat box. I'll give you the next minute or so to recap what's happening in there.
Yeah, well, also, one of the links in the email that we sent when we said we're going live with Ilya, one of the links is not the right link. It's going to the Advent calendars. So I'm just fixing that. But and a couple people that bought didn't get their spin to win pop up. Anyways, we will fix all that. Don't worry. I'm just going to send another email. And guess what? If your spin to win doesn't pop up, well, you get to pick one of the prizes. I'll just list the prizes and you get to pick one. So we're giving away some cool things, Ilya. There's like a signed copy of the new Sipster's Guide to 50 more Ontario wines, which Luke Whittall, the author, wrote a little blurb about us at the back of it. So amazing. We'll sign it. Luke's signing it. We're having a signing party this weekend. So that's something you can win as an add-on free gift to your purchase with Leaning Post. There's the HST holiday that Ilya and Nadia were so generous to give us access to early. And you can win some other prizes. So if your spin to win doesn't pop up tonight, you just get to pick like Enovino, Sipster's Guide, 2 of the Carl's Wine Club tumbler glasses. You get to pick one of the prizes. You don't have to spin. Not to worry. But yeah, to recap, lots of great comments. I mean, I love that Dylan, who's originally from your area, is learning all about the wine regions while he now lives in BC. Like,
there you go.
Our house.
Sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah.
That's
right?
Yeah, exactly right.
So I did see the comment about the winemaker from Tenerife. From
yes.
So I can tell you for sure. So just as it's an even smaller world than that. So I just saw Celia. So her brother is the winemaker, but Celia,
that is too crazy. Right?
Yeah, but Celia is one of the people who owns Vignatico in the Canary Islands. She actually lives here in Toronto, and even smaller world. She works for the same agency that represents our wines in Ontario. So that's the job she eventually got. So I actually I email and talk to Celia on a fairly regular basis.
That is too funny.
Her brother was here in the summer as well, and he came and saw the property and whatever. But so they're the family who own a great winery out of Canary Islands, called Vignatico. If you ever go there, fantastic people. I haven't been to the Canary Islands, but I have the wines many times. So just lovely people. And yeah, who we actually talk to on a semi-regular basis. So
yeah, it's too funny. Wow, what's the odds?
Yeah. So that happened a couple of years ago. Like, I originally met her because we just had the same agency here, and then Celia decided she was moving here, and then she got a job with them. So now we're like, she's one of the Nicholas Pierce Wines people in Toronto. So actually saw her this morning. So there you go. She's part of it. We're doing a tasting this morning. So as part of a new, anyway, not to throw another thing, but we're doing a non-alc thing that's going to be fun in the future. So
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah, we'll talk about that because after Christmas, maybe it's a little something that we want to touch together and do a little something.
Yeah, it's just coming in development. But now, for me, this time of year and Christmas and heading to the New Year's, I mean, it's wine time. I don't know. I don't care what people say.
Absolutely.
For me, it's definitely time for wine. I don't know. So.
Absolutely. So for the first time, I mean, I never had that as highly rated. When we look at our 4 bonus pick, I was looking at my score, and the 4 bonus pick, it's 94, 94 plus, 94 plus, and 96 plus points. Right. I mean, if people don't know, like, I mean, I don't give points like candy. It's really hard. Like 96 plus, it's happened once before. And like, I mean, like 10 wines a year out of 1,300 wines that I taste get the 94, 94 plus. Let's say 20 wines a year get that. All of the bonus option are all in that freaking bracket, 94 to 96 plus. I really want to start with, because I have to say, that's going to be the wine of the year here at Carl's Wine Club.
That's awesome. Yeah.
There's
with the rest of you. That's great.
I mean, there's 3 weeks left of the year, that's right? True, yeah. And I mean, there's one at 95, but nothing unless the Red Blend Marathon that we're going to do on December 20th. There's an ace in there. I don't know, but the Clone 548 Chardonnay, Ilya.
Yeah.
This summer, but not this summer, in the spring, that was May the 25th. I tasted 115 Chardonnay in an 8.5 hour. It was a real marathon. We had like 45 people here in the backyard, and like it was like winemakers, wine industry professionals. There was a bunch of people, and it was unanimously the wine of the night, of the day, for among everybody. And then not just me. And I, like, my other, like, it was 195 points, and you had 1.5 points higher than everything. So tell me, and we had many chats after that, but I want people to, like, Clone 548 for you was not necessarily something that you were hoping, or you were like just saying that's going to be the shit. That's going to be the thing that everyone's going to talk about in the next 5 to 6 years. I mean, it was just a component of a block that you put in, hoping that, yeah, it's going to be good in the blend.
Well, and that's the thing about, like, I mean, I did a lot of things that make sense, like, on paper, but you can't really prove it, right? You can't really prove it. And that's what I like to say about winemaking. Like, the awesome thing about this entire project is, like, by the time I can prove whether we were even close to right, like, we're already in. It's too late. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's like 7, 8, 9 years later before you can even prove it. And so the cool thing about 548 is so it's a clone of Chardonnay. Just to let everybody know, it's an unusual clone because it has much smaller, like, berry size. It just gives you less grapes generally, which is awesome if you're a winemaker, but tricky because if you're in an area that's too warm, you can end up with kind of weird wines. It ripens really quickly. I sort of thought that it would be pretty good because we're in a cooler area. And I thought it might be pretty good. I put it on a spot that has a little more clay in our property. That all makes sense. But again, we planted that in 2013, and, and then we had to make a wine finally in 2020 when the vines are kind of ripe, or like sort of starting to be a little bit older. And then, we had to make that wine, and then we had to put it out on the market, which takes us to like 2024. So it takes you like 11 years.
I know, right?
Yeah, so even get close to deciding, like, is this good? So, like, from my point of view, it's really hard because you're like, I think it's going to be something, maybe, I don't know exactly. You leave a lot of caveats because and it has to have a little bit of age in bottle yet. Like, we're sort of coming right to the end of this wine. You guys are essentially getting like the last, like, whatever. I think we have about 8 cases that are going through you guys, but that's it for this wine. But, like, just that idea, like how would you know all of that until you finally make it, right? It's just a weird thing. I mean, I love that you guys loved it that much because it was sort of a bit of a weird, like internal hidden thing. I actually threw it in your Chardonnay tasting on a bit of a lark at the end because we were originally going to do it wasn't in the lineup, and then I was like, oh, maybe they'll like this one, so I threw it in with the other Chardonnays we sent you, if you know what I mean. Like, I was like, I really love this wine, but to be honest, like outside of like the internal LP people, our other Chardonnays had gotten way bigger scores, or people were more excited about those other shards in our lineup in other places. And then when we sent you this one, we were like we really love it. You know what I mean? Like I said, the people who made it, but nobody was really like giving it big scores until you guys, which is awesome because you guys seemed really excited, which is great because we were excited, but you never.
Yeah,
really
I mean,
so that long story short, you guys and I guess the like the team at Leaning Post, we have, I think, similar palates, I guess.
It was a heck of it was such an amazing experience to see my taste validated by the crowd, because like I had some people coming after when all of my scores was out and this wine was coming. Always people were like, what is this? And I was like, see, that's what I said. And like I have everything on video, so I'm like, yeah, no one can say I'm bullshitting. It's all on YouTube. Go check it out. I said it first.
Yeah, no, that's great.
and like Mira, like Rob just commented, right? Rob is live now, on the spot. I had I mean, that's so funny because I was still live. Then when I finished my live, Rob is like, doesn't matter what you say, I already ordered a case.
It's funny you say that because we missed that live. Like we were like, oh shoot. I actually remember what Nadia said was, oh shoot, I think they're in like hour 6 of Carl's Chardonnay live or something. We're just sitting in the house. And then she was looking, and then she's like, oh, order for 548 Chardonnay, huh? Oh, another order for 548 Chardonnay on her phone, and she was like, oh. I think that has she's like, you think it has something to do with the thing? I was like, oh, I don't know. But then, and then Rob said, oh yeah, no, we just ordered it. Yeah, in the middle of it. So that's how we knew. Like, but we didn't put the pieces together till like later when you guys called us, and yeah, so it was really funny because we didn't really. It just sort of came to us later. Like we kind of put all those pieces. So I just happy that people loved the wine. That was the coolest part. Yeah.
That was pretty cool, really, really cool. And it got our summer started very, very well with that whole thing. We so that's for the 548, which is we need to keep at least a case aside because it's going to be the wine of the year, and we're going to do a release of the wine of the year, and we'll talk offline. But yeah, we will. Other than that, we have in the bonus pick a wine who's not on the market yet, and it's the 2020 Merlot. And it's the pre-release. I took that wine to Rob a couple of weeks ago when I opened it to do my tasting notes. We were all like, "Holy smokes!" I gave it a 94 plus point. Amazing. Tell me a little bit more about that wine because it's an absolute stunner.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool thing. So I will say that wine just went out to our wine club, and then isn't out anywhere else at the moment. But since we were doing this live, I thought like 2020, I mean, for those who don't know, like 2020 was an absolutely like killer vintage here in Niagara. It was warm, it was sunny, but it wasn't like blazing hot, if that makes any sense. It was just lovely weather all year. That particular Merlot comes from a vineyard, so it's not off of our property. We don't have any Merlot here, but it's a vineyard actually in Niagara on the lake, but then lakeshore. So the interesting thing about that is so for those who aren't from Ontario, like we're sort of the coolest spot, and you have to think of it honestly, it does get warmer the further east you go here because the lake and the escarpment separate and you get this awesome area. And the flats of Niagara and the lake, actually, there's some parts that are really quite hot. Like people don't realize that, but kind of the middle of Niagara and the lake, 4 Mile Creek, there's, St. David's, there are these areas that are really, really warm.
And there's the same degree day than Osoyoos. So when people say Osoyoos, it's a desert. It's the hottest place in Canada. 4 Mile Creek appellation has the same average degree day.
It is. It's nuts. Because it's sort of the opposite of like us, like even the areas around it are not as warm. You know what I mean? It's a bit like Osoyoos too. Like it's like a whole 2 steps warmer than us, and at least a step warmer than almost all of the rest of Niagara. So there are places. That's what we've learned, honestly. So if you want to know why the wines are so much better in Niagara as well over the last like 10 years or so, is, you know, grape growers finally started to listen to winemakers and to the market and realize like we can do big reds, just not everywhere. We can do Pinot Noir, just not everywhere. If you know what I mean, we're learning like generally the West Niagara is more like Pinot Chard, Riesling focused now, and Niagara on the Lake is more big red focused. That already made the wines better because one area is a lot warmer than the other. And so now that we've learned that as well, I mean, we found this lovely vineyard. It is like 100 meters from the lake, but in Niagara on the Lake. So when you're thinking about Merlot, it's an earlier ripening than Cab Franc, Cab Sauv, but then you do want an area that's warm-ish, right? So you want to kind of find this perfect spot where it's like, you know, warm and sunny, but not too hot. And so that to me was perfect. I found this vineyard. I've been making it for a few years, and then you get a year like 2020 where it's just all of the like
you got all the elements you're
all the elements
for.
you're looking for, including mature vines, beautiful spot, and it all comes together. To be honest, I was worried on some of my 2020s on 2 specific wines, our Senchuk Pinot, which we'll talk about later, and this wine are the 2 that I was worried about when they were in barrel. I'm going to be honest, they were beasts. And I thought when we would taste them at a barrel, and everyone's like, so what do you think? I'm like, I think it's tannic and very big. And I kept thinking in my head, I was like, whoa, I think we might have overdone it. Like, did we push this too far? Is this too big a wine? Is it going to be balanced? But again, great terroir like does seem to trump that. Like, it just needed some time. And then as they kind of matured in barrel, it's weird. They went through this really crazy like wall of tannin and alcohol, and you're like, oh man, I can't see through this thing. And then eventually, just with a little more time, like it's like the terroir and all the other interesting stuff like came back and kind of balanced out the wine. And this Merlot is a great example because it is a relatively bigger style, even for me, because that's the year. But somehow all the pieces suddenly, there was one day, long time in barrel, 22 months. And so, and whatever, a year and a bit in bottle before we've even released it. Like we're just starting to release it kind of basically this fall and winter. But that all makes sense now when you taste the wine because all of a sudden the pieces are there, right? Like, so it's taken us a bit to get here, but I really love that wine actually. And I just that's why I wanted to share it with you guys, because I figured that'd be the way to do it. So.
Oh, I mean, and what was impressive to me, and I mean, that's the patience of the winery owner. Like say, okay, we have to hold on to that one.
Nadia literally just walked in from an event. Yeah.
How's it going?
Very, very good. Did I interrupt in the wrong time?
No. We're not talking about anything anyway. So nice to see you.
It's lovely seeing you guys. How did you enjoy the wines?
Dad, it's absolutely. We're just talking about that. The Clone 548 was going to be Carl's Wine Club Wine of the Year at 96 plus 1 points. I mean, nothing has touched that level all year. We're over 1,200 wine tasted so far. Nothing came even close to a point to that. So, I mean, it's the runaway. There's 3 weeks left to 2024. And I mean, we got our wine of the year. So we're talking about that. And we're also just finishing talking about the Merlot, which is a pre-release. And so my point to you, Ilya, is like the burst of freshness now. There's 2020. It's big, it's bold. We knew the tannin will be there, but there's a burst of freshness in that wine. And now that you're talking about the vineyard side, there might be that proximity of the lake who bring that beautiful freshness, point of acidity, who absolutely lift the whole monster into a fresh Merlot, if it makes sense.
No, absolutely, and that's what I love about that spot is I think people forget that Merlot isn't just about bigness when it's in a great spot that's a little like maybe a step cooler than you might think, but still works. You get the sunshine. You get these beautifully balanced wines, so it's full, it's rich, but it doesn't have to be sort of fat and soupy. It can be like really structured and interesting, and I think that is one of the reasons that. I was excited when I found this vineyard was because I sort of made a bunch of assumptions and it's taken a few years. But yeah, part of that is that, that lake effect and those things are real. It's just what you have to do is what I was saying before. To be proven right, all you have to do is just make some wine, wait 2 years in barrel, bottle it, wait another year or two, and then so it's like 4 years.
Exercise of patience.
Yes.
But guys, we have the funniest story about the Merlot, that Merlot, okay? Let's backtrack. And I'm sure Daryl won't mind that I tell the story live in front of thousands of people. But Daryl, one of our greatest members since day one. Now we became friends. He lives in Ontario. When I taste, he's a big Merlot fan. When I taste a big Merlot, I'm always sending him a picture on Messenger. Hey, look what I'm tasting tonight. This is fantastic. So I'm tasting, Mira made a fantastic beef stew. So we made the beef stew, and I knew that night I'm going to do the tasting notes on the Merlot. So the Merlot's been breeding. It's been like decanting for at least 2 hours. I poured that and I had first sip and I'm like, holy fuck. And my first reflex is take a picture and I send that to Daryl. So couple minutes later, he's like, oh my God, that sounds awesome. And I knew he's a club member of yours. It was late. It was like, I would say probably 8 o'clock my time Pacific. So means 11 o'clock your time. Night goes on. I do my tasting note. I go to bed. When I woke up at 7 a.m., I got a text from Daryl with a picture of the 2020 Merlot at the winery.
No joke. I saw the picture. We have
Yeah.
it.
And I'm like, and it's a Sunday now because like I tasted it on a Saturday night, and I look at Mira and was like, what's happening here? And I think he said, well, I had a call from a client, so I had to go nearby, so I thought in stopping by. I just pictured the staff at the tasting room and someone shows up to taste an unreleased wine. Like, what?
Yeah. Well, and it's coming in the wine club pack, but it's not out there. Yeah. So I'm sure they had to like dig in the back, and
So that's Pearl's Wine Club here in a nutshell.
That's why we love working with you and Mira, because honestly, you guys have the geekiest, awesome customers that are like, you like Canadian Merlot, yeah, I'm going right now. Like,
get out of my way! Get out of my way! I need to go.
We love working with you guys because, like, you like birds of a feather fly together, and you found the geeks all across Canada and put them in one club.
Yeah, I mean that was so funny, man. And I laughed.
Awesome.
So 94 plus points. I mean, incredible Merlot coming your way, guys. So the other one we need to talk about, because now it's getting late. I need to let you go. One more wine, please. And it's the Pan. That was the star of the Pan Canadian 2.0 that we did here at Hester Creek, Ilya, the 2020 Senchuk Vineyard. I remember when planning the first edition of the Pan Canadian, and you said, Carl, we need to do the 2019, 2020. It's going to be so big. I'm not sure if we want to do that. A year later, the project keeps going, and 2.0 come along. And like, now it's time, Ilya. We need to put that wine in. So this is a 95 points wine. Tell us about that vintage and how it translates into your style of Pinot Noir that you do. Okay, because I mean, it's a little different, but it's ended up like, if you look at the body of work of that wine, it's a very, very, very special wine.
Yeah, that's a cool one. I was mentioning earlier when we were talking about the Merlot. So there were two wines. Like, for most of you, if any of you have ever tasted our Pinots, like, I think you can kind of get from what we're talking about. Like, I love, especially the reason I love Pinot Noir is it's always about like a real balance. It has this beautiful freshness, florality, acidity, but backed up by.
Sorry, I just see that comment. Yeah. That's hilarious. That's totally us.
That is totally us. So we what I love is like true classic Pinot. I actually had, it's funny, I had somebody working for us who asked me about like, well, what are you looking for a Pinot? And I was like, well, I want something to be big and rich and full bodied, but like not too big. And I want it to be medium and restrained. Yeah. And I want it to be light and fresh, but not too light and fresh. And I want it to be, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, well, basically I want it all. I want everything to happen in the same glass. And that is the essence of Pinot. So when we made this 20 in particular, as I was mentioning, like with the Merlot, like it was such a beast in barrel that I thought almost for sure that we had completely sort of blown past any semblance of what I like in Pinot. But then what I kept thinking to myself is like, the terroir trumps everything. Like our spot is still a cool spot. We still have this great breezes off the lake, beautiful natural acidity. All that's got to come together eventually, right? And so I was doing a lot of like guessing, but the amazing thing about this wine is that is exactly what it needed. Great terroir truly does trump everything. It just might need time. That's what I've learned. A little bit of patience. And what's crazy about this wine is it is like, it's full on Pinot, but it is 13% alcohol. So it is like full, rich, dense, but has more acidity maybe than you might expect. And it isn't about alcohol. It's about density of flavor and balance. You know what I mean? And so that's, I think, what blew people away, even at the Pan Canadian. I was like, it isn't about like there are different kinds of big. There's big, like 15% alcohol big, but there's also big, like dense
concentration,
concentrated right? Also kind of a little light at the end, but not flavor wise, just weight wise. And that is perfect Pinot. They always say that sort of, whatever, iron fist in a velvet glove. I'm going to throw that out there.
Yeah, but, light on his feet, on his feet,
all that stuff. But it's true. Like great Burgundy does that. Great Pinot from anywhere, though, honestly, does this amazing balancing act of like, wow, that is full flavored wine. And yet somehow, as Nadia sometimes jokes, it hits you. It's like a club in the face, but the club is covered in flowers, and it's kind of soft. So it's it does this double thing where you're so on the one hand, wow, that's a lot of wine, but then it's like, oh, but it's so friendly and so nice, and so like it does both things, and I think that's my ideal of Pinot. I was hoping our farm would do that. It's taken a few years to kind of show that.
Now, I want to tell you a funny story. So earlier this year, Ilya and I went to Burgundy, and we had an opportunity to taste some of like the great Burgundy like vineyards, and we were just like, oh my God, it was great. We were with
Nicolas
Patel from
yeah.
So we're sitting there at his kitchen table and we're drinking, and this is like the 7th, 8th bottle that comes out.
Possibly more.
Okay, and then he goes, all right, I'm gonna open up this piece of shit from Canada now, and sorry, the horrible French accent, I sincerely apologize, but
that's fine. I'm sure I can do better though.
Yeah.
so he's like, all right, let's see. Somebody, I have a shit bottle of wine from Canada. Like, and he's just joking.
He's just joking. Whatever, so I brought the Senchuk Pinot.
But so he's starting to pull the cork, and I see beads of sweat coming down Ilya's, and it's this wine. And he tastes it and he goes, oh shit, that's not Burgundy, that's you. And I'm like, that was, but like he was just like, that's good, he's like, that's not Burgundy terroir, but he's like, it's cool to be able to taste your terroir, and that's what we're always trying to go for. Yeah. Are we looking, we're like, that's from an inspiration, yes, the style of wine that we're doing, I don't want to taste like somebody else, I want to taste like our place.
That's the number one thing is we like to say we are inspired by all kinds of wines from around the world. Probably for us, the influences from Europe are big, but they're just models. And we always like to say it's like in cooking, French techniques are maybe models for things, but I believe in Canadian cuisine. I believe in Canadian wine, and that's you take techniques from around the world, but you take local ingredients, in this case, our grapes from our property, and you make something great. And then it's unique because it's from your area. It really represents everything about your little weird part of the world, right?
Ilya, Nadia, I think you guys tell me if I'm wrong with that. We are so close, and I think we are there now to be able to say this is Niagara. It's no more, it's old world, it's new world. It's no more, oh, it reminds me a Gevrey Chambertin. No, now we're about to say, oh, it's Niagara on the lake. Oh,
it's Lincoln Lakeshore.
This is the escarpment. And I mean, we're there. We are there now. I mean, it took 25 years of vineyard, of like single vineyard and working, like I mean, like really extracting each piece of land. But we're there. That's growth of a region.
It takes people like Ilya, like Thomas, like Kenny Mason to come and find and promote those vineyards and highlight it. Back in the day when it's like, oh, well, there's Pinot from Niagara, and we all put it all together. That's nothing. Pinot's terroir. Pinot is about where it's grown. So you have to highlight and showcase and get people excited about it. And I love pouring people like, I don't know if I like Pinot. I'm like, great, I'm going to pour you 4.
Yeah, I do that with Chardonnay. I do that with Chardonnay. I don't think Chard.
Exactly. In case you're wondering what our tasting room experience is like, that's sort of what it's like. Somebody will walk in and say, I don't know, I don't think I like Chardonnay. And Nadia will be like, challenge accepted. I'll bring out like 4 Chardonnays. So anyway, so if you ever come, that is kind of what it'll be like. But
that's awesome. Hey guys, I mean, it's what, 8, it's 9:30 now. I have to let you go, but we can, hey, next time we see each other, probably before that, but we're back in Niagara for the Pan Canadian 3.0. We found a big sponsor this weekend in Montreal. So things are growing with the Pan Canadian. You guys been with us, believing in that story, believing in that project since day one. And we're looking forward to keep growing that with you guys. So June 21st at Suan Staff, we're planning to pack the tent this year. We're hoping for 200 people. Now we're 3.5 days of celebration. We're selling some all-inclusive pass, which is 3.5 days of touring and tastings and experiences. So
and by the way, we're looking for 1 or possibly 2 accommodation options, ideally with bedrooms that have their own bathroom en suites. Those are kind of hard to find with more than like 4 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. But yeah, if you know of any like vineyard mansions anywhere, let us know.
Because members traveling from all over the country, and like we're gonna put members all together in big rental houses. So yeah. So it's gonna be really cool. So there's that. But hoping to get your way maybe in March, because like June is way too far. So we need to connect much before that. So guys, thank you so much for partnering with us.
No problem at all. Yeah. No, great
day
as always.
And we had. Thank you very much. Okay, and we'll be in touch later this week with hopefully we won't sell the whole 548. We need to keep a few cases for the wine of the year.
I'm glad you told me today, because I will go and count the exact number. And
let's in the morning, because they're starting to fly off the shelf. So
that's awesome. All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Have a good one. Have a good one.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
Oh man, like I have to sometimes, like I put an alarm, I have to stop because I would have kept going for another hour, an hour and a half. So these poor guys, that's too much fun, just too much fun. I haven't talked, so now I'm gonna keep going on the lineup because another wine who's not part of that line, who's not part of who's not on their website, it's not released yet. It's the 2019 Blanc de Blanc.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that beast? One of the very best champagne method. So traditional method, Blanc de Blanc. 2019 is the absolute perfect vintage for that. Linear, angular, energetic, precise, but also rich and concentrated. The bubbles are so soft. One of the very, very, very best bubbles that I tasted this year. We tasted that together, Mira, in August. And I was reading my notes a couple nights ago. And I gave it 94 plus points when we were at the winery, when we tasted that in August. Stunning. If you're looking for something special for the holidays, guys, this is it. This is it. The 2019 Blanc de Blanc, 100% Chardonnay. Outstanding sparkling wine. Hey, how about you tell the people a little bit about the breakdown about what's happening with the GST the government GST rebate,
Okay.
and what Ilya and Nadia have decided to pass along to us.
Yeah. So as of this last, what's today? Today's Wednesday. So last Thursday, I think they officially passed this HST holiday through. So it's happening. So December 14th to February 15th, we get a HST GST break on many things, including wine. Now, this is bigger news for Ontario wine and I think Nova Scotia wine than it is for BC wine, because the provinces that have HST, the wine from there is going to be like you're saving 13% tax. Versus like BC, we have a 15% tax on wine, but only 5% of that is part of the HST GST holiday. So kind of sucks that way. But
it's great to promote the Ontario product, because we've seen that growth in the last 4 years, Mira, of people from British Columbia asking for more Ontario wine. At the very beginning of Carl's Wine Club, let's be honest, it was Ontario and Eastern Canada people who wanted to taste BC wine. That's where the demand was. That was the bulk of the action. Now we're getting like the increase of Western Canada people who are getting interested, who are asking about the Ontario wine, have increased so much that it makes me so happy. And seeing now, it's a really cool thing that it's happening, and we can have the world-class Leaning Post wine with an extra 10-15% discount. I mean, this is really fucking cool. This is really fucking cool.
Tax, but if you do the math backwards, it works out to like 11 and something percent. But still, that's quite a lot. You know, it adds up. It adds up when you're buying wine. So, yeah. Daryl, tough on BC. That's why we found you, Mike. That's awesome. So so HST break, you don't have to wait till December 14th for that, for the Ontario wines. Ilya and Nadia are letting us get some early access to that. And there's the spin to win, which I've gotten a few notes from members. I just sent another email because I know the spin to win is not working for some of you. But if that's the case, we'll just reach out to you, or you can just pick one of the 3 cool prizes. We have the Carl's Wine Club tumbler glasses. We have the Sipster's Guide to 50 More Ontario Wines by Luke Whittall that just came out, and that will be signed by the author and us, because we're featured in a little story. You can learn all about how Carl got into wine back when he was, a young Carl, a teenager.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Working in the old Quebec City, and hiding myself in the cellar when I was a busboy, and like looking at all of these labels and being intrigued by
geography and
being intrigued by the Châteauneuf-du-Pape and the Barolos and like the Piemonte wines and all of that, and what really, really attracted me. And so, hey, here we are.
Yeah,
25
so
years,
story
30
is in
years
that book,
later.
and it's double signed by us and the author, and you can get it as your spin to win prize this week. And then we also have, of course, the amazing Enovino wine aerators as a possible prize for you as well. So great things you can get if you decide to get your Leaning Post wines this week. We did make extra advent calendars for anyone that's like, oh, I wish I had gotten a 6-bottle or 12-bottle advent calendar. We're going to do what we did tonight with Ilya, every night for 12 nights starting December 13th. And we're going to go coast to coast with the wines. And the wines are all a surprise, although we can tell you there's a few very special wineries involved. That one looks like one from possibly Nova Scotia. But even if we told you the wine, that wine is not available anywhere, not even at the winery. Like, you cannot buy it anywhere. It's like a secret wine. The label doesn't even have all the details on it because it's such a small batch, and it's really good. So that's the kind of stuff that's in the advent calendar. It's a lot of fun. And then we'll learn the stories behind those wine regions. We'll hear from the winemakers. You don't have to drink and open the bottles every night, although you can if you want, but you can just unwrap it and discover it and listen to the winemaker. And of course, everything's recorded, so you can listen later too whenever you decide to open that bottle. When is Advent shipping? They've started to ship, Daryl. We're overnighting them to people. And so yours will arrive very shortly. There was, of course, as there always is, one bottle that was a little later. But yeah, they should be at everyone's house by Monday or Tuesday at the very latest next week, and possibly sooner. So Advent calendars, still some available. And what else, Carl Boucher?
Oh, I mean, I have juice for another hour and a half. I don't know how you feel, but
that's about it. December 28th, Red Blends Live. We're going to go live tasting dozens of red blends from across the country. And we'll have that Oculus 2020 that recently got 100 points open as well.
So I went to buy that bottle at the winery. I can't wait. Not to taste the wine. I'm excited to see what's in there. But you know what? I really, really want to see other, like, from all over the country, where everyone stand beside that $250 bottle of wine, because I know we have some $30 to $50 wines or $60 wines across the country that are absolute bomb. So I'm really excited to see where all of our small producer, artisan, passionate guys like Ilya Senchuk and like many others. I was on the via email with Fabian Rice, owner at Ferox, who got so excited this afternoon and replied to me. He's sending a bunch of red blends for Ferox to compete in that. No, it's not a competition. It's a showcase. So I'm really excited for that December 28th marathon that we're going to do here, the Red Blend Marathon. And thanks to members who, via our survey on Facebook, choose the Red Blend, because we weren't sure. And Mira said, Carl, I know exactly what to do. Let's poll our members. They're going to tell us what is our next marathon. And boom, here you go. So yeah. Mike is saying, to be clear, what are the 4 bottle in the 94.4 packs?
I'm fixing that right now. The 4 bottles don't show up. So
I know, I didn't have time. You said, yeah, exactly. So it's going to be on the site. It's the Clone 548 Chardonnay, the Senchuk Pinot 2020, the Merlot 2020, and the Blanc de Blanc 2019. The Blanc de Blanc is 94 plus. The Senchuk 94 Blanc de Blanc, 94 plus for the Merlot, 95 for the Senchuk Pinot, and 96 plus for the 548 Chardonnay. I mean, it's the first time that we have 4 bottles between 94 and 96 plus. I mean, it never happened before. I
just updated. If you refresh your, if you're looking at that at the wines. I just updated it so you can see the list now. Sorry about that.
There you go. Look at that. All of these fire emoji. I mean, this little 4-pack must be fire somehow. So,
yeah. Like 2 pre-releases, and all 4 wines are between 94 and 96 plus points. Pretty good.
With a discount. With a discount.
With the HLC holiday, the 4 bottles come to 212, I think.
Yeah, 212 instead of 220 instead of 230. Yeah, so yeah, really, really cool. These 4 wines can age for 10 years minimum. 10 years minimum, and some of these will age even longer. Like that the Blanc de Blanc 2019. I'm telling you, that can age for 15 years. That easy. So yeah, really cool. And the 6-pack, come on, a world-class winemaker, a world-class winery like Leading Post, 6 bottles for $155. 6 bottles for $155. Free shipping Ontario and Quebec. $20 for BC or rest of the country for the Discovery Pack. Come on, that is so cool. I've been waiting all year long. I've been waiting for that feature. Really cool.
Yeah, Vicky's asking if it's happening tonight. Yeah, the early access link is out. A few little glitches with it. So I just sent an email saying if you don't get a spin to win pop-up because it's not coming up for everyone, we will just contact you about what prize you want, or you can hit reply to the email I just sent everyone and say, this is the prize I want. There's 3 prizes going on till Sunday. I have to mention one more thing, Carl. There's so much freaking going on right now. Saturday, we are going live in Zoom, which we haven't done since COVID times. But Zoom, so we can actually like see each other. And we're doing that because it's for anyone wanting to come visit BC Wine Country. We're giving our no holds barred BC Wine Country locals guide. So we're going to take you on a bit of a virtual tour of BC Wine Country, the different regions, what's special about each one, and also all our tips and tricks for each area. And you'll probably get to meet some other members who are visiting wine country in BC in the next year or so, because those are the people that are interested in this subject. If you're VIP Unlimited member, it is free. If you're not, we're going to send a last chance email to jump on board with that. There's a bit of a cost involved if you're not a VIP Unlimited member, but you can join us Saturday, and there's freebies. Like we have a bit of a, what do you want to call this, Carl? Like a guide for each region of wineries with our sort of quick notes about it. And it's handy because we're highlighting the ones that still do free tastings or tastings with a reimbursement if you make a purchase. That can save you quite a bit if you are doing a few days of wine touring. So it's just a very handy guide and a recording if you are coming to BC Wine Country in the next year or so. Will the Zoom be recorded for VIPs? Yes, it'll be recorded for everyone if they're joining us on Saturday. But if you can come in person, it's always fun because you'll get to meet some people that are also wine touring. All right. Well, cheers, everyone.
I just want to give a hint because, like, it's not that I really want to give a hint, but I have to. Pinot Noir from Prince Edward County is freaking good. The one that I'm tasting right now, it's freaking good.
Yes. And it's one of the ones in the advent calendar, right? Some people already guessed that one a couple lives ago.
Whew.
At least you guessed the winery. We don't know the vintage, which wine, all that kind of stuff. And also the winemaker will be live with us that night. So pretty fun.
Yeah. Pretty fun.
Lots of great fun coming up. You know why? Because the holidays are stressful, because there's so much going on. So this way, starting December 13th, there will be a reminder to calm down, relax, have a glass of Canadian wine, because we'll be live every night if you're up for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, what a show. Thank you, Nadia Senchuk. Thank you, Ilya Senchuk. Thank you, Mira Boucher. Thank you, the hundreds of Canadian wine lovers and Carl's Wine Club members across the country who listen to us, the winemakers from BC, everyone from the industry who follows us. Thank you for joining us tonight. It was a blast to talk Leaning Post wine. So, Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club members, see you next time.
Cheers. Haha, Carl's favorite.